Brachos Daf continues the discussion of the previous few blad about the covet of tefillin and Shema. The Gemara will discuss where to store tefillin at night, how to properly store tefillin, can it be hung or in the bag. The Gemara will discuss halachas of reciting Shema in a compromised state, if one is in a bed with another person who is undressed, with one's family, if one is undressed himself, or if one is walking through a place which is unclean. The Gemara will also discuss a number of halachas about what one is allowed to do during Shemona Esrei as far as the bodily functions. And then the Gemara will expand on the concept of an erva as to whether it includes the side of the body, the back of the body, hair of a woman, a tefach of skin, the shok, the thigh, or the voice of a woman, and all these things which define what erva is. So let's see, the Gemara is in the middle of discussing the proper place to store tefillin, and we had learned the halacha that one may store it underneath his head. The Gemara wants to know specifically where under his head. So the Gemara said it shouldn't be directly under the head, it could be between the pillow and the mattress. Then the Gemara said, but we learned a brisa that one may place it in a pouch directly under his head. The Gemara says it means that the pouch is under his head, but the tefillin themselves are in the part of the pouch which is not underneath the head, just the rest of the bag is. The Gemara notes another place where somebody stored his tefillin at night. Bar Kapara wrapped it in the curtain surrounding the bed. Rav Shisha, son of Avidi, placed a shawl over them and put it on a chair. And the Gemara has an interesting report over here. We had seen previously that the halacha was that one is allowed to keep the tefillin on the bed even if he's going to be together with his wife. So the Gemara says that Rav Hamnuna, Braid of Yosef, said that Rava sent him to go bring him his tefillin, and he went and he found it in Rava's bed between the pillow and the mattress, and he knew that Rava's wife had gone to the mikveh the night before, so he had certainly been together with his wife, and he understood. He says that Rava was trying to teach me, show me lemaisa, that he practiced this halacha that one may keep tefillin under his head, under his pillow, even if he's going to be together with his wife at that time. We had said earlier that Shmuel says that one is allowed to say Shema in the bed even if his wife is with him. The Gemara now wants to know what is the status if there are two people lying in a bed and they are both undressed. Can he say Shema? So the Gemara quotes a machlokas. According to Shmuel, who said that one may say so, Rav Yehuda says he may say it with his wife in his bed, or if there's somebody else there. The Gemara says that Rav Yosef disagrees and says no, this only applies to one's wife, where one is familiar with, and being in the bed together with her does not bring up distracting thoughts. However, if it's somebody else, one may not. So we have a machlokas whether one may say Shema together with someone else undressed in the bed. So the Gemara attempts to prove Rav Yosef's opinion by the following maneuver. There are two brises which will be contradictory. The Gemara is going to say that according to Rav Yosef, it makes sense that there are contradictions, and it's not a stira, it's not a machlokas. But according to Shmuel, you will not be able to say that. What's the two brises? There's one that says that one is allowed to say Shema if somebody else is in the bed and they're both undressed, if they just face in opposite directions. And then the second brisa says that if one is in a bed with his family members and they're all undressed, he may not say Shema unless the blanket is between them. So Gemara says it's a contradiction, but according to Rav Yosef, it's not a problem, because the case where one is permitted, that's if it's his wife, but where one is forbidden is referring to when it's other people. So that would not be a contradiction between the brises, but according to Shmuel, everybody's permitted. So what would be the pshat in the contradiction between the brises? So the Gemara says, hold a second, even according to Rav Yosef, it doesn't really make sense, because the second brisa that said it's forbidden said where the family members are in the bed. That most likely includes his wife. So you see that there's a contradiction between whether he's allowed to say Shema with his wife in the bed with him or not. The first Mishnah says yes, and the second one would seem to indicate no as well. So either way you have to say there's a machlokas. So the two brises do not work out any more according to Rav Yosef than they do according to Shmuel. The Gemara will now spend a while trying to define the meaning of the term erva. Erva generally refers to the intimate regions of the body. There are a number of halachas that apply to erva. Here we're discussing the halacha that one may not say Shema if he's in contact with the erva of another person. The Gemara will broaden the discussion soon, but for here we're trying to figure out which parts of the body are included in the term erva. So it's clear that the organs that are used for marital intimacy are included. The question here is, what about the backside of the body? So the Gemara says, based on what we've just learned, that one may say Shema if he is together with another person in the bed and they're both unclothed, that obviously the backside is not included in erva because they are in contact with each other. The Gemara attempts to support this from another place. There's a Mishnah that differentiates between the halachos of a man and a woman who want to say a bracha but they are undressed. So the Gemara says a man may not say a bracha undressed because his erva is exposed. A woman may say a bracha if she's sitting on the ground, even if she's undressed, because being seated on the ground covers her erva as long as her legs are shut. So the Gemara says, but what about the backside? That's exposed. So the Gemara answers, this is not necessarily a proof that the backside doesn't count as erva. It could be that she's sitting in soft earth and therefore that area is covered as well. The Gemara asks whether the halacha is in accordance with this statement of Shmuel that two people may say Shema if they are undressed in the bed, which was a ruling of Shmuel. Earlier we had said that Shmuel's halacha of tefillin on the bed, even though there's a tiyufta against it, that still counts as the halacha. So the Gemara here says that Rav Kahana asked Rav Ashi about this halacha, and that he answered that the halacha is not like this statement of Shmuel. Now, as regards to these halachas of erva and the family members that are together with somebody in the bed, which we saw in a previous brisa, the Gemara wants to know up until what age is there not a problem of these erva halachos. So the Gemara brings two opinions. Rav Chizda says it depends for a girl or a boy. For a girl, it's up until 3 years and a day. For a boy, it's up until 9 years and a day. This is the age where there is some degree of development. The second opinion is that it's until a girl is 11 years and a day and a boy who is 12 and a day, which means into the 12th year and into the 13th year. And this is in connection to a third factor, which is that none of these ages apply unless there's a certain degree of physical development that associates with maturity, which is discussed at length in the Gemara elsewhere. Now the Gemara wants to know, does pubic hair count as erva? So the Gemara says that Rav Mari asked that to Rav Papa, and he said, hair is hair, not a big deal. Now the Gemara discusses the halacha of a tefach space of a woman's skin. The Gemara says that that's considered to be erva. Now here, the halachos that we're referring to are slightly different. There are three levels of this halacha. First of all, there could be is a man permitted to stare at a woman's skin for the sake of his own pleasure? The second halacha would be, is a man allowed to see the woman's skin at all, even without having any intent to enjoy it? And the third level is a man allowed to say Shema when a woman's exposed skin is before him. So the Gemara over here says that Rav Yitzchak says that a tefach space of a woman's skin is considered to be erva. So the Gemara wants to know for which level of halacha. If we're discussing staring at it, but that can't be because we know that the halacha is it is forbidden for a man to stare at any expanse of a woman's skin anywhere, even a finger. So that can't be what we're referring to. The Gemara says it's referring to the halacha of saying Shema. A tefach of space of a woman's skin which is generally covered, it is forbidden for a man to say Shema when he's seeing that, if it's in his field of vision, even if the woman in question is his own wife. As a side issue, there is some discussion in halacha whether this is only with regards to one's own wife, and that if she was not his wife, then there would be no size of a tefach, it would be any amount, or if the size of tefach applies as well to others. Now the Gemara gives another aspect of what is considered erva. The Gemara says that the shok of a woman is considered erva. Shok is a machok, is what it refers to. It's a part of the leg. It's not clear if it's from the hip to the knee or from the knee to the ankle. The Gemara says that it's an erva. The Gemara brings a pasuk to support that. It says gali shok irvi and haris, and afterwards it says tigal erva seich. So you see shok and erva are placed together. Now the Gemara says that a woman's voice is considered an erva. This is referring to the singing voice, not the speaking voice, and the halacha that it's relevant to is saying Shema while hearing the woman singing. The Gemara supports this from the pasuk which says ki kolech orev. Rav Shesha says the woman's hair is considered an erva as well, like it says sa'arech ke'eder ha'izim. Now the Gemara goes back to the concept of tefillin being stored. And the Gemara says, how can you store your tefillin? The Gemara now is not necessarily asking about the night, but the Gemara says that Rav Chanina saw that Rebbe hung his tefillin from a hook. So the Gemara says, how could that be? But we know that the halacha is one is forbidden to hang his tefillin. It says that one who hangs his tefillin will have his own life be hung. And it says in the pasuk, one's life will be spended before him, is referring to somebody who hangs his tefillin. So the Gemara offers two answers. Either Rebbe didn't hang it by the strap. The problem is only hanging by the strap, but he hung it from the box. Or Rebbe hung it in the bag. One might think the Gemara says that it's forbidden to hang it from the bag because it should be placed like a sefer Torah, and the chiddush here is that you are allowed to. Now the Gemara moves on to Shemona Esrei and a number of different unappealing events that might happen to somebody during Shemona Esrei. The Gemara says that he saw that Rebbe during Shemona Esrei sometimes yawned, burped, sneezed, spit, or pulled a louse off him, not using his fingers, using cloth. And the Gemara says, but when he yawned, he covered his mouth with his hand, and if his towels fell off, he would not put it back on. So the Gemara asks that all these things are things that a person is not supposed to do during Shemona Esrei. The Gemara quotes a brisa which explains this, and the brisa says as follows: somebody who speaks loudly during Shemona Esrei shows that he doesn't believe that Hashem could hear him. Somebody who shouts during Shemona Esrei is like a Navi Sheker. They used to shout. Somebody who burps or yawns is haughty. Somebody who sneezes is a bad sign for him, or it shows that he's a uncouth individual. Somebody who spits during tefillah, it's as if he has spit in front of the king. So how could Rebbe be doing all these things? So the Gemara offers one by one how each one can be understood, that what Rebbe was doing was not the forbidden version of these things. As far as burping and yawning, it could be that Rebbe had an uncontrollable reaction to it, and the form which is usher is if you can't control it, but you do it anyway, on purpose. As far as sneezing, the Gemara says there are two types of sneezing. There's sneezing from the mouth, and there is sneezing which refers to passing wind with a sound. So the usher version is the lower version. Rebbe did the upper version. The Gemara even supports this by quoting Rabbi Zera, who said the most important thing he ever learned was that if somebody sneezes during Shemona Esrei, it's a good sign, because just as he was given relief from the pressure in his sinuses during Shemona Esrei, it shows that he will be given relief from his other issues because Shemayim has accepted his tefillas. Now, as far as spitting, that Rebbe spit, it's only forbidden to spit upon the ground, but Rebbe didn't spit on the ground. He spit into a cloth or into his talus and held it over there. The Gemara notes that Rav Ashi used to spit behind him if he had to spit in the middle of Shemona Esrei, and he was asked, why don't you spit into a cloth like it says you're supposed to, and he said that I can't, I am too sensitive. The Gemara comments on the Brisa's statement that one is not allowed to say tefillah loudly because it shows that he doesn't believe that Kadosh Baruch Hu can hear him. The Gemara says that if it helps his concentration to say the words out loud, and he's praying alone so that nobody else can hear him, then it is permitted. In a congregation, he shouldn't, because it's going to confuse the tzibur. The Gemara refers to what happens when somebody needs to pass wind during tefillah. It says that Rav Abba was avoiding Rabbi Yehuda because he wanted to move to Eretz Yisrael, and Rabbi Yehuda did not allow her, and Rabbi Yehuda said it's a violation of the pasuk that says that Klal Yisrael was sent to Bavel, and that they will not be allowed to return until Hashem takes them back to Eretz Yisrael. But the Gemara says that although he was avoiding him, he wanted to learn, so he said, I'm going to go stand outside the Beis Medrash and try to hear something. So he stood there and he heard the following brisa quoted: somebody who accidentally passes wind in the middle of Shemona Esrei should wait until the smell passes and then continue. And then there are those who say that if somebody feels the need to pass wind during Shemona Esrei, he should step away 4 spaces, and then he should do what he has to do, and then he should go back to where he was and continue. But he shouldn't just continue, he should offer a little tefillah before he finishes, and he should say the following thing: Master of the universe, you created us with openings and hollows in our bodies. You know all about our shame and humiliation that we have to suffer during our lives. And the end of it, we're going to end up being eaten by worms and maggots. And then he can continue. Said Rav Abba, when he heard that, this would have been enough for me to come in here. Only this thing was very important for me to be aware of. The Gemara now returns to the discussion of somebody saying Shema while he's not dressed. The Gemara wants to know if he's not dressed by himself and nobody else is with him in the bed, is it permitted to say Shema over there? So the Gemara quotes a brisa which says that one is allowed to, as long as he's covered and he presses the blanket against his neck so that he has a separation between the head and the brain inside it and the erva. The Gemara says, what about the separation between the heart and the erva? We need that also. The Gemara says this Tana holds that the heart and the erva not having a separation is not a problem. Now the Gemara moves on to the halacha of saying Shema in a place which is unclean. The streets in those days often had excrement in it, and one would not be allowed to say Shema in the presence of them. The Gemara says, but what if somebody was walking in one of these filthy alleyways and the time of Shema was about to pass? What should he do? So the Gemara quotes two people who said the following conversation. Rav Hanuna said the name of Rav Yochanan that he should cover his mouth with his hand and say Shema, and Rav Chisda said it can't be. I would never listen to something like that. And the second version is that this was Rabbi Bar Chana who said in the name of Yeshua ben Levi, and again it was Rav Chisda who argued with it. So the word challenges, is it really true that Rav Huna holds that you're allowed to say Shema just by covering your mouth if you're standing in a filthy place? So first of all, the Gemara says Rav Huna can't hold that way because he says somebody who's standing in a filthy place is not even allowed to think thoughts of Torah. The Gemara says that's if he's standing still, but here we're talking about where he's walking. Walking is not so bad. Then the Gemara discusses Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan can't possibly hold that way because Rabbi Yochanan holds that one is not allowed to think words of Torah in a bathroom. So how could he say that you just cover your mouth with your hand? And you can't tell me that this is different because he was walking, because there was an incident that happened where Rabbi Abba was walking with Rabbi Yochanan, and Rabbi Abba was in the middle of saying Shema, and he stopped because there was excrement around, and he asked Rabbi Yochanan, where should I continue from? And Rabbi Yochanan said, it depends if you had enough time to finish or not. So you see, the fact that Rabbi Yochanan was asked the question and he answered that he agreed with the practice that he should stop saying Shema, and he did not hold that walking was okay. The Gemara says no, it's not necessarily a proof. It could be that he just said, listen, I personally hold you should have kept walking and you're allowed to say Shema while you're walking even in a filthy place, but according to you this is what you should do as far as where you should resume from. The Gemara now brings brises that support both the opinion of Rav Huna and that of Rav Chisda. The brisa says, Meforish, if one is walking in a filthy place, he should put his hand over his mouth and say Shema. And there's a different brisa that says that if one is walking in a filthy area, he should not say Shema. And if he was in the middle of saying Shema and he came to a place that has excrement there, he should stop. So the Gemara wants to know, what is with somebody who doesn't stop? What do you say about somebody like that? So the Gemara quotes a pasuk, V'gam Ani nasati lahem chukim lo tovim. My rules for him are no good. Mishpatim lo yichyu bahem, and my laws he should not live by. As he says, this is somebody who pulls upon himself averas with ropes of lies. Rav Bar Ava said, Dvar Hashem baza. This person has made the word of Hashem scorned. The Gemara says, what if somebody stops? He's in the middle of saying Shema and he comes to an unclean place and he stops. What do you say about him? The Gemara applies the pasuk that says, B'davar hazeh tarichu yamim, this shall lengthen your days. Now the Gemara goes back to the discussion of somebody who wants to say Shema. The Gemara wants to know how covered he needs to be. The Gemara says that Rav Huna says that he has to cover the lower half of the body. The upper half of the body is okay if it's exposed. Gemara quotes a brisa which seems to agree with that. It says that as far as Shema, one may have his upper torso exposed, but he may not daven Shemona Esrei in that state.